content is brought to you by Algorand, which is the official sponsor of the Thinking Crypto channel and podcast. Algorand is building the technology to power the future of finance, the convergence of traditional and decentralized models into a unified system that is inclusive, frictionless, and secure. It is founded by Turing Award-winning cryptographer Silvio Micali. Algorand has developed a blockchain infrastructure that offers the interoperability and capacity to handle the volume of transactions needed for DeFi, financial institutions, and governments to smoothly transition into FutureFi. The technology of choice for more than 700 global organizations, Algorand is enabling the simple creation of next-generation financial products, protocols, and exchange of value. For more information, please visit algorand.com.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto channel, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Lyn Ulbricht, who's the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who's the founder of Silk Road. Lyn, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Lyn, obviously the story about your son has been well publicized, but I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about Ross growing up in the family so folks get to know a bit about, before Silk Road, who was Ross, what was he like growing up and things like that?
Sure. Well, he was very, very easy to raise because Ross is by nature a pretty laid back guy. He still is. He really is. And that's why he's gotten along so well with people in the prison and with the prison personnel and everything. He's easygoing. And I could just take him anywhere. I could take him under my arm and take him wherever. And he just went with the flow. And that's kind of what Ross is like. So yeah, it's funny because somebody was just asking me, was he a problem? Because she's having issues with her 14-year-old. And was Ross hard? And I'm like, not really. He didn't give me a hard time, like some kids do at different stages. He was always quite sweet. And yeah, and I think he still is. So, but he was a regular kid, grew up in Austin, Texas, was a Boy Scout, went on to Eagle Scout. He played soccer and, just played outside and, just was a normal upbringing is, normal. Everybody's different, but
sure,
pretty wholesome and nice upbringing, I think. And so, yeah, he was, we went on trips, we traveled with him and his sister, we did a lot of family things. So yeah, he had I think he would tell you, he had a solid, happy childhood and home. So.
And was there a point where he got into computers and internet and things like that? Because obviously he became an entrepreneur building Silk Road, one of the pioneers in Bitcoin adoption. Can you tell us about when maybe you saw, or you and the family saw that he took a step towards being more tech savvy and things like that?
Sure. Well, just to be clear, he's not a computer programmer. Ross is not an expert in computers. He's a smart guy, obviously, but he was more trained in science, physics, and other sciences. I mean, but like most people his age, he knows how to do stuff on the computer more than, say, I do. And honestly, I kind of was like, no video games. You can't play video games. I'm sure he did it at his friends' houses, but we didn't have video games in the house because we were encouraging his art. He's very artistic and playing outside and that sort of thing. And finally, by the time he was 14, he bought him with his own money a used Nintendo from his friend. And I'm like, fine, I got him to 14. He didn't spend too much time in front of a screen. And so at that point, but my understanding is he didn't build Silk Road. He was the idea person, the concept person. And in fact, the person, and it's on our website, freeross.org, Michael Wegand was responsible for the back end of Silk Road and the technical part and actually making it possible. And he was recently arrested by the same Southern District of New York, and he got 8 months. 8 months. And Ross has a death in prison sentence for having the idea, because I think the idea was what was dangerous or threatening. And and Ross is very philosophical, and he has a lot of ideas, and he's continuing to write about those and think from prison. For instance, an example is, and it's on medium.com as well as on our website, he wrote an essay called Zcan, and I forget the full title, but it's basically trying to solve the problem of privacy on WhatsApp, but not allowing people who go after children or traffic kids to use that privacy in order to hurt children. And so he was working on that. We ran it by, but he doesn't have a computer. He has no access. He hasn't been on a computer in over 8 years.
Wow.
Or even email. He doesn't have email, nothing. So he does everything in longhand. And we sent it to some experts, and they were like, this has promise. This actually has promise. You should develop it. But of course he can't. And that's just an example of how Ross has so much to give and wants to give, but he can't because of restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely. So at the time when he was coming up with the idea and looking to build a site, were you and the family aware, did he ever talk about it? Like he's doing some things with Bitcoin or whatever it may be at that time?
Well, he certainly didn't talk about the site, and I certainly wasn't aware of the site, but he did talk about Bitcoin. He was very excited about it and its potential for monetary freedom. And we'd talk about it, and I'd be like, well, yeah, but what if all the, internet goes down? And we have different discussions. And finally I said, should I get some of this Bitcoin? And he's like, no, Mom, it's too volatile. And I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, that was like the worst financial advice I've ever gotten in my entire life. I don't know how much it was worth, but not much at the time. But anyway, yeah, so he did talk about Bitcoin. He was very excited about it. And he was also very excited. This is when he was in grad school at Penn State. And he was very excited about just free markets in general, and wanted people to know about them and use them and have an experience of them. So to that end, he originally designed a video game where people could go in and trade and that sort of thing in a free market atmosphere. It's kind of like what sounds like the metaverse now. I don't know that much about, but and so he tried to sell it. He was in different workshops with it and that sort of thing, and got acknowledged, but it didn't fly ultimately. And so he turned to the internet. But as it came out in trial, and it's on our website, a very in-depth footnoted, based on the public record account, he wasn't the guy who had the computer expertise to do this. And actually someone he knew in college helped him do it, and helped him put it up. And then I guess his other guy, Michael Wagan, took over, or I'm not sure of the sequence. I know Wagan, his friend from college, didn't go to prison because he, testified at court for the prosecution. Although in his testimony, he said, yeah, Ross told me he had gotten out of it. He said that, but, and Ross says it too. But in any case, but the Michael Wagan was arrested. And like I said, he got 8 months. And just to say, the disparity in sentencing in this case, and it's all on our homepage, shows a chart of the different people involved. No one involved with Silk Road who was arrested got more than 10 years. The biggest drug seller on Silk Road is out. He got 10, but then he got let out at 7 years for COVID or something. It's the disparity of sentencing is vast. So this is really in violation of the Sentencing Reform Act that says a crime needs to have essentially the same punishment. You can't have somebody who committed that crime and then somebody else get, nothing, which is what happened with the person who was running Silk Road 2. He got no time at all, and yet it was bigger and sold more drugs than another person. So there's a lot wrong with this case, and that's, to me, one of the biggest violations is this crazy sentence, this really unheard of and very cruel sentence, basically a death sentence.
Why do you
out of proportion?
Why do you think that is? And why did he? Because you look at it and it's like, like 2 life sentences, and then like to your point, the other people are just like 10 years or something. Why did they like throw the book at him here?
Well, actually, we were told, not officially, but we were told by one of the prosecutors they weren't even asking for that horrendous sentence. So I don't know who was actually behind it. I always figure other people are behind things, but that judge, she's a hanging judge. He was her 5th life sentence that year, and it was only May. She's, I think, an abomination. And, she decided to give him basically 2 centuries. And it's just, to me, well, it's a violation of the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment, and it's also just puts us all in peril, because Ross's case now and his sentence can be used as precedent in future cases. And they can go, well, Silk Road guy so you're going to get this. He got 2 life sentences plus 40 years for no violence, first time offender. So now you can. And that's how the courts operate. So it's actually a very dangerous sentence and reckless. And I don't think it was about drugs. I think the pressure was about Bitcoin, because it was the first proof of use of Bitcoin. You couldn't buy on Silk Road with anything but Bitcoin. At the time, there was no other cryptocurrency. And I personally, because the drug offenses were punished so lightly, I don't think that's what it was about. I think it was about Bitcoin. And actually, it came out in The Intercept, that's in Snowden's papers, that the NSA was urgently pursuing Bitcoin users a couple of months before the Silk Road was taken down. So the force of the NSA, which is supposed to be protecting us from terrorism, was after Bitcoin. So I think it was very threatening to powerful people. That's my personal opinion. I don't have proof about it.
Well, I would tend to agree with you there, because to your point, it was a very different time back then than it is now, where the stigma and all of these targets on Bitcoin, there were a lot of it back then. So it's very interesting that, Ross took a big hit on this because of the different time or a different view on Bitcoin and crypto. So with that said,
one more point to your point. It's also a different time for drugs. For instance, the most commonly exchanged item on Silk Road was a user amount of marijuana, small amounts. Well, now marijuana, it's legal on the state level, not on the federal level, but on the state level in many, many places. And so that's what's wrong with a life sentence with no parole. Not only do people change, Ross is obviously more mature than he was when he was 26. Everybody is. He's 37. And but also times change and views change. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that because it applies across the board with this case.
Yeah, that's super important. And you see a lot of reform and changes in the drug laws and things like that, and obviously around Bitcoin as well. And so on that note, are there any folks in the political realm or even the Bitcoin or crypto community that are trying to help you and help Ross in this, getting him, to adjust the respective sentencing and so forth?
Yeah, well, we've had tremendous support, really. We have a page on our website, widespread support, with quotes from various people. We have governors on there. We have high-level Bitcoin and other crypto people on there. We have we have bankers. We have all kinds of people, lawyers. It's a lot of people, and they're saying, this is outrageous. And by the way, it's from both sides of the political aisle. It's not just a certain group. It's across the board recognized as an outrageous travesty. And so, yeah, we do. Thomas Massey is an example. He went on television and was like, again, this is a violation of the 8th Amendment. This is wrong. And others, Rand Paul's been extremely supportive, and other people, and like I say, from both sides of the political aisle. So we have, and of course, I would say our biggest base of support is many libertarians. The Libertarian Party, as a party, voted to ask President Trump at the time to issue clemency. They passed a motion unanimously, which I hear is unusual for them to do anything unanimously. So, that there was no argument. It's like, yeah, they're totally behind Ross, but also the crypto community very much, because many of them consider him a pioneer. And really, there's a case to be made that they wouldn't have the wealth they have and where they are if it weren't for his vision. And in fact, many people donate to us for that reason, and also help us, I should say, because it's a not just me, but our effort. And definitely those are the two main groups of people, and there's overlap there, that I'd say are most familiar with the case and most devoted to helping us. And of course, we just recently had NFT sale, which has a whole lot to do with the crypto community. So
tell us a bit more about that. His collection.
Kraken bid on it. It was one thing, but it was won by a group of people who got together, who are all crypto people, as far as I know.
Can you tell us a bit about the NFTs? How did that idea come about? And you mentioned it's kind of fundraising to help in Ross's, getting him the clemency and so forth.
Yeah, it's part of it's part of our effort, and we also, there will be a part of it as well to go into a charitable, what's called a donor advisory fund, where we can delegate funds to what we want to do initially, at least, is helping Ross's fellow prisoners in various ways to alleviate the suffering they and their families have. So it's not only for Ross's own case, but to help others. And yeah, we feel very strongly about that. Ross and I both have spent, over 8 years now meeting these families and seeing the destruction of families and neighborhoods and communities through this criminal justice system that I think is way out of hand. It's changed a lot since I was growing up. You didn't get life sentences for nonviolent anything. You didn't give people decades and decades. I mean, there's people in prison now, according to the ACLU, who have that kind of sentence for stealing a jacket, for crying out loud. It's like, it's just, I feel like it's a whole industry now, a self-serving industry. And we want to do our part to at least alleviate some of that suffering with this NFT sale.
Yeah. There seems to be, to your point, an incentive, and because of government funding of certain prisons, it's become a business. So you're incentivized to give people outlandish, ridiculous sentences, or try to get them on as many things as possible, rather than what did they actually do and what time do they actually deserve.
Yep.
And that's a whole other conversation.
We could do a whole other interview on that one.
So tell us about the if folks wanted to get involved with the NFTs, what would they have to do? Where are the NFTs available? Is it on the freeross.org or any respective marketplace? Can you tell us about that?
Well, the NFT is sold. So Ross needs to create another bunch of art that we can. He didn't do it. He can't do this, but we took his art that I had possession of. And in fact, I was digging through his childhood pictures. There's some childhood pictures on there, and some sketch from his teen years, and another collection of things he did in prison. But Ross can't have anything to actually do with this. So that's, but I and family went ahead and decided to do this, and we got help. So, because what do I know? I'm just learning about crypto and now NFTs. I'm like, geez. I can't decide whether this is going to wear out my brain or make me smarter in my old age. I haven't figured that out yet, but I don't know. Lots of learning curves for me. So anyway, so we just, with help, we were marketed on Super Rare, which is a great marketplace for NFTs, and put it up there. They do it, they market it and all that. And and then people stepped up and started bidding. And I didn't know how it would be. I didn't know how it would go, but people were bidding lots of Ethereum. It was because it was done in Ethereum, because that's kind of what NFTs, from what I understand, I didn't really know anything about it, but that it's done with Ethereum. And as I mentioned, the CEO of Kraken, which we are so grateful for him doing that, and others who I don't know who they are, bid, and ultimately a collective essentially called a DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organization. See, that's another thing I have to learn about. It's like, can we stop at the learning curve just for a little while? Anyway, but they raised money in order to raise the money to bid on this NFT, and they won the bid. So now they own it, and also want to use that whatever leftover money they raised to continue to help Ross, and also be involved with our cause of helping prisoners. So that's been good.
I wanted to ask how Ross is doing. I know it's a weird question to ask. The man is in prison, and I'm sure he knows of the work you're doing and the Free Ross movement. How's he doing mentally? Is he hopeful? And as much as you can share, but I also understand for privacy.
No, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to share. And part of, I think he's feeling very good about the auction, because not only is it the funds, which I understand the IRS will get 40% of, and so I'm not sure how much we'll be left with, but the funds also show tremendous support from the community in a way that, we have a petition, which I encourage, please sign it and share it. But it's easier to sign a petition than to bid on art for over $1 million in crypto. It shows a very strong, to me, substantive support for him from the community, which really means a lot. And I know that he's very uplifted by this. And but in general, Ross is by nature, again, he's just by nature a positive person. And it's not only by nature, although it is his nature, because we've been through a lot and he's been through so much, and it's not always great. Oh, how are you doing? I'm great. Although usually unless it's really bad, he'll go, I'm good. He's very disciplined about not allowing his mind to go into a place of bitterness or anger or any of that. And when I do, like I'm talking to him, I'm like, about, say, a judge. He's like, nope, we're not going to go there. She's not important. The prosecutors aren't important. We need to keep our eye on, and keep ourselves elevated. And so it's helped me too. And he wrote an essay, and again on Medium and on our website, called 5 Keys to Inner Strength I Learned in 5 Years in Prison. And it's very inspiring. It helps me. And it's got, he talks about having gratitude, and he talked about that in his talk. Also, that was an interview actually, but then was broadcast at Bitcoin 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And a link is on our website. I really encourage people to go there and hear it. It's quite inspiring. It's authentic. It's pretty raw. It's pretty strong. And he really is saying what he, feels from his heart. A lot of what he talks about is he says over and over, I want you to understand what it means to lose your freedom and to think about that. But in any case, he talks about gratitude and patience and other things that have gotten him to this place. And faith is another one. And he also has a lot of self-discipline. Like, for example, he was in, I would say, an 8x10 metal box is how you can accurately describe it, for over a year, mostly 24 hours a day, 7 days a week because of COVID. And he meditated hours a day. And he just finished teaching a meditation class to prisoners. And so he really intentionally and in a disciplined way manages his feelings. So, and really His fiance is another person who's followed. I from the beginning, and then when she became involved, she also have gone where he is. So he has visits, and his father initially did. And so we kind of followed Ross to different towns where he was so that he could have a lifeline to the real world and not have prison be his only world. And I think it's helped a lot too.
Now, obviously, he doesn't have access to internet and things like that. But is he still curious about Bitcoin and how things have changed?
Yeah, I mean, he says sometimes it's hard to hear about it because it's like he's so not a part of it and he wants to be so much.
Sure.
But they do now. Bitcoin's so big, it's on the TV in the prison. It's on CNN and stuff like that, where before, it wasn't. So he can learn about it that way, and he gets information sent to him, so he can kind of stay in the loop. But it's pretty hard without internet access,
Yeah.
Now,
I want to make sure I ask you this question because I know the media, sometimes they sensationalize things, and they
do.
Yeah, and they'll go for the headline to just get you to click on it or trigger you. Are there any misconceptions that you want to address that are out there in the media about Ross?
Well, I would say the biggest one that we've been fighting forever is this murder for hire accusation, which was never charged at trial. It never was ruled on by a jury. It was never proven, and it's based on anonymous chats. But the prosecution was allowed to discuss it in front of the jury. They go, well, there's no murders, and you don't, and that's another thing. People go, oh, he's a murderer. And I'm like, so who did he murder exactly? But the prosecution was permitted by that judge to talk about it and prejudice them. But then he says, oh, you don't rule on it, and we don't have to prove it. Just believe us. Just trust us that, yeah, it's him. It's him. Well, there's a lot of people. I mean, one of them, a top admin they faked his death, Curtis Green. He said publicly, I don't think it's Ross. And he has his own idea about who it is. And he was on the inside. There's absolutely no proof of it. And in my mind, and actually the judge herself referenced it, even though it was never proven, which is a violation of the Sixth Amendment, because the Sixth Amendment was written to protect the accused from a judge doing exactly that instead of relying on a jury. She just decided, I'm going to believe the prosecutor, so it's true. I'm like, really? Okay. So that was a violation, and that went to the Supreme Court, but it didn't, sorry, I'm just going to turn this. It didn't, they didn't accept the case. But yeah, it's just crazy to have this perpetuated, and it's the media who loves that. They love to, they don't go, oh, raw milk was sold on Silk Road, or mostly marijuana was sold on Silk Road. There was a book club on Silk Road. There was counseling for drug abuse on Silk Road. I mean, there was more to it. And actually, this was not allowed. The only thing allowed to be known to the jury that was on Silk Road was drugs. And they didn't hardly mention marijuana. I was at the trial every day. And so the jury's, thinking, oh my God, there were books and art and all kinds of things sold on Silk Road. So, and in fact, I was told by someone very connected with the cannabis industry, and he's a scientist, and he said parents were bereft when Silk Road was taken down because they could no longer get CBD for their children who were suffering from extreme seizures. And CBD was the only thing that helped them. And then they couldn't get that. And they were life-threatening seizures. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Silk Road was all great and that weren't bad things on there. I'm certainly not. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things on there. I'm like, oh my God. But, I mean, I'm not for drugs, but at the same time, it just was not accurately portrayed in the media, certainly. And they put things on there. For example, let me just say about Silk Road, it was based on the non-aggression principle, which means voluntary interaction. No force was permitted. So, and nothing that harmed a third party. So party one and party two wanted to exchange marijuana or whatever, that was fine because it was considered that no one was harmed. But child pornography was not allowed because that hurts a kid, that hurts a child. Stolen property was not allowed because this is a third party, is the owner of the property, etc. No violent services, nothing to do with forcing anyone to do anything. And this is, I don't know, and I'm the only person I think in interviews that ever mentions it, but it's in the evidence, it's in the trial transcripts, it's on our website. So I think there's been a lot of distortion. I mean, I know there has, and there's outright lies like, oh, Silk Road had human trafficking. No, it didn't. Show me. You know, they just say stuff in the media, and it's just maddening sometimes. So I appreciate the question, actually. It's
so, you know, as far as next steps, obviously we have the NFT fundraiser. You're talking to different folks in the political realm. What would be the ideal outcome for you and and Ross in the coming, let's say, next year? If there was some action, would it be reduce of sentencing, or a pardon? What would be the ideal outcome?
Well, clemency is what would be ideal, and clemency can only come from the President of the United States with federal cases. And clemency can look a lot different ways. It can be a pardon, but that's not what we would ask for. We would ask for a commutation of Ross's egregious sentence. And so what we would love is time served, that he's done enough time, he's not a danger to society, and he can get out of prison. That would be the ideal thing, but it can also look like reducing the sentence. Of course, it would have to be a big reduction on 2 centuries, but you know, it's an absurd sentence. It's actually ridiculous. So, you know, of course, we would prefer time served, but it could be, you know, a reduction of the sentence to a certain number of years. There's a lot of leeway with the president. They can do that.
My final question is, you know, obviously Ross has talked to you guys about Bitcoin in the early days. Do you and your family own any Bitcoin or plan to, you know, explore any Bitcoin or any other?
Well, like you told me, it's too volatile, right? So we were, but I did put a little in my IRA, you know, not much. I don't really have a lot of personal crypto, which is ridiculous, right? But I just, you know, I've been so consumed with Ross and his fund and making sure that I haven't really pursued that. But yeah, I got a little bit, not much.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know, that's the least of your priorities.
Yeah, and I'm not really great with numbers and finance, honestly. But yeah.
So Lyn, thank you for joining me today. And for folks listening, then what would be your call to action for the visit freeross.org and sign the petition?
Yes, absolutely. We're almost to 500,000. So it'd be awesome. I'm really looking forward to putting up a big announcement where 500,000 people want the president to commute this sentence. It's not, and it helps me because there's no automatic, but if I go to a legislator and say, I want your support for these reasons, and look, 500,000 people want it. That's a significant number of people. So, you know, it's helpful, and please spread the word. Please share the petition. And also follow us on social media and learn about it and help us correct the essentially lies or distortions, because a lot of people act like they know exactly what happened, and it's all based on the media, and they're completely wrong. And so any of that is helpful. And any suggestions, I mean, if people have particular skills and things like that, but also just suggestions, it's really easy from the website to get a hold of me. Every page has a footer that you can email me, and you know, try to, you know, respond to everything, certainly read everything. So just to get involved like that, there's lots of ways, and we have a take action page that lists some of them. So yeah, this is an ongoing fight, And we also, again, want to help other prisoners too. We want to shine a light. We hope that Ross's case can shine a light on these excessive sentences that are hurting a lot of people and children too. So.
Well, I'll be sure to put all the respective links so everyone listening on the podcast as well as watching on YouTube. You can check the video description to go visit the website and all the social profiles as well. Lyn, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing the story of the movement to help Ross and his background as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.